Judgment, fear, and shame are the cause of most of the world's problems. Now, if you think about it, judgment, fear, and shame aren't necessarily all bad. I've talked about that before, that emotions, feelings aren't inherently bad or inherently wrong. It really depends on how we process them, what we do with them, and our intent behind them, especially when it comes to our words. And judgment, for example, when you judge yourself, can be positive because you can examine yourself and you can determine ways to actually improve your life. Likewise, shame, although it's generally referred to or looked at as being a negative type of emotion, shame allows us internally to kind of self-diagnose or self-reflect upon the things that we've done in our life and then use that as essentially a springboard to further improvement. And fear obviously can be a self-preservation method as well. We talked about lower vibrations of negative fear, and we've talked about like worry and concern. We all are worried, we all are concerned about our kids, about our future. Those types of fear are okay. But I think the problem comes into play when we so heavily throw fear, judgment, and shame at other people, and when we internally let that really take over our lives. If you think about society today, we live in a highly judgmental environment. We judge each other on the attributes that we can't change, that we know we shouldn't judge each other upon. The color of our skin, our sex, our race. We judge each other on our sexual preferences or our religious views. And when we do that, we're at odds with each other when we do that. It's a cause of a great deal of conflict in the world. And I think judgment, we need to understand that when you judge someone, that it's not necessarily a reflection of who that person is, it's more of a reflection of who you are inside. Because when you make a judgment on somebody, it's something that you're telling yourself that you don't want to be, that you don't want to understand, that you don't want to open yourself up to their viewpoint. And that really causes, I think, a major breakdown in our communication in society. And it's because of that lack of communication that we wage wars, that we yell at each other, we scream at each other, that we call each other names on social media. And that's put us as a society, as really all humanity, a member of that oneness of humanity, at odds. And that's a really sad place, I think, for all of us. We live in such a judgmental environment. We get the ideas, the concepts of judgment from many different places. We feel like we're judged by our peers, especially in school. But even, as we grow older and in our careers, through our friends, our families, our coworkers, we receive that. But especially when we're young, it's like it's indoctrinated in us. And some of that comes from our religious and spiritual views, because there's, in a lot of teachings, there's a concept of right and wrong, and that if you do something that violates those rules, that somehow you are a bad person or you are lesser than someone else. So wherever we get our inherent judgment from, I guess is anyone's guess. Are we inherently born with it, or did we inherit it from the environment around us and the things we feel, the things we experience? I think it's whatever the reason for judgment and the amount of judgment that we have in our lives, it's important for us to examine how we are using judgment and to always try to use good judgment instead of degrading or harsh judgment directed at somebody else, because ultimately we don't know someone else's lot in life. We don't understand where they're coming from on any given day even. What kind of emotional state they're in, what they've gone through in the morning or yesterday. We don't know what happened in their life. Sometimes there are major traumas and small traumas that affect us from day to day. But it's easy for us to make judgment calls when it's not appropriate. For example, I can get pissed off at the driver that's tailing me when I'm driving, but how do I know that I shouldn't judge him? Because maybe he's trying to get someplace fast to get his wife to the hospital. But I'm quick to make a judgment on that. We all make judgments very quickly, almost instinctively on the spot. And I think it's only if we stop and consider how we're making judgments all the time that we can actually progress as a human species. The fact that we judge others based on their religious views, on their ideologies, is one of the most destructive forces in the world today. We wage battles over this. Acts of terrorism are committed because we are judging each other. We are judging each other based on this ideology, this concept as to we are right and others are wrong, when in fact there is no black and white in life. It's only shades of gray. Fear, as I mentioned, can be an extremely powerful motivator if you are looking to defend yourself against, for example, a saber-toothed lion that is attacking you. You can use fear to your benefit to either escape, or you can use it to defend yourself or launch an offensive attack and conquer your fears. But fear, when we are struck by fear, and it immobilizes us, can be a dangerous thing. A lot of us are very fearful of expressing our opinions, our views, because we feel that we will be judged and criticized too harshly. And when we're in that situation, that's a very toxic environment. It is not one that allows us to come together as a human race, because we are all connected. And over time, we've divided ourselves not only across country lines and divisions, but ideologies. And at the end of the day, everybody wants the same things in life. They want a happy life, they want to be healthy, they want prosperity. Those are things that we all have in common. And yet we've divided ourselves based on what we believe is right or wrong and what we believe other people should or shouldn't do. And when we have that overhanging umbrella of fear, we know that, or of judgment, we know that if we have a particular idea or a like, or something that, that we look into, or that some thought that we have that differs from the mainstream or the supposed mainstream view on something, that we are frightened and we don't want to speak up. But we can fall into the trap of feeling shameful. Like we don't want to open ourselves up, share our stories, tell about our failures in life and explain our weaknesses. We don't want to talk about the things that we are afraid that people will judge us based upon. So shame, fear, and judgment, they're all, closely tied together. And if we only understood that when we judge others, we are really judging ourselves. That is not the person that we are judging that really is at fault. It is really a reflection of who we are. And if we examine who we are inside, at our soul level, I believe we should not divide ourselves in such a manner. If we want a better place in the world, we need to examine our views, hold our judgments, make good judgments, and we can improve the world.